All right, so here we go. I'm going to walk you through making a zombie portrait. It's not going to be an amazing finished product because I'm going to try and move quickly enough to give you all time to work on it. But I do want to review some of the basic techniques. Okay, so this time I'm going to start with my picture, and I think I'm going to start by cutting out the background. So I'm going to start with my portrait open right here, highlight the layer that has my picture on it, and I'm going to go to the quick selection tool. I'm going to click on that quick selection tool, and then I'm going to use the select subject option. Okay, right here up at the top, I click select subject, and for me, because my background was so plain, it's going to very quickly do a nice selection around my head. Okay, and then I can very quickly just go in here and watch my arrow move all the way down to the layer menu. And then down towards the bottom of the layer menu, we have the white box with the gray square in it. And that is the layer mask square. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it's going to go ahead and just make a nice layer mask of my face right here. Okay. And just cut that background out. Next, I can go ahead and go up to my foggy forest layer. And I'm going to get my move tool here. And I can grab foggy forest and I'm going to drag it all the way up over the top of my photo, hover, come back down and let go of it. Go ahead and say okay to these changes that they come up with. And now you see I've got the foggy forest. First of all, I should probably make it a little bigger because this is not very believable like this. So I'm going to go to the edit menu. I'm going to choose free transform. And I'm going to use these handles to scale this out. All right, so I'll drop that down, drop this down here, and that works. And there's, this is just your own creative choice of where you want it. I'm just going to drop that right there. Okay. And now I've got to take this layer that's my foggy forest and I'm going to drag it underneath my portrait layer. Okay. So there you go. You have a pretty picture of me standing in a foggy forest. I think that's Halloweeny enough. But I should do more because you need to learn these techniques. Okay. So next, let's start with the skull. Okay. And you don't have to use a skull. You could just use textures, but I'm going to show you some fun ways to use this skull. And this is going to be kind of similar to what we did with the Calavera project. Okay. So I have drawn a selection just around the skull. If I wanted to, I could use the quick select tool, but I think it's fast right now just to draw a rectangular selection around the skull like this. Okay. And then I'm going to use my move tool and I'm going to cut it. See that? The move tool right over the top of a selection ends up cutting something out. And now I'm going to drag it up and hover over my picture and then drop it back down. Boom. Okay. So Chris asked what texture. You could take any of the textures in there, or if you were talking about um, the finish touches I'm going to put on it, I'm going to use the film textures. Well, I'll go back to that when I get closer to the end. Okay, so now I have a layer with the skull, but it's too small. Okay, so again, this layer is highlighted. I'm going to go up to the edit menu and I'm going to use free transform. And here I can go ahead and scale the skull up. And I'd like to see if I could get it to match my head. So I'm going to, as I scale, I'm going to go to opacity and I'm going to lower the opacity on this so that I can see through it a little bit. All right. So that's good. I can go ahead and make it a little bit smaller. There we go. So just about like that. I'm just going to kind of fit this skull onto my head. And I'm not going to use the whole thing, but I'll show you how to use pieces of it. When you're done scaling, go ahead and hit the check mark. Okay, and now I've kind of overlaid that a little bit like the sugar skull. Okay, getting pretty scary looking. I'm going to bring my opacity back up to 100%. Okay, and now I'm going to get rid of this black border around it. And to do that, I'm going to use under the quick select tool, there's a tool called the magic wand. And again, the magic wand will take whatever pixel you click on. I'm clicking on a black pixel here, and it will expand out my selection to include all the other pixels that are the exact black color, and it'll just select them all. All right, so it did a nice selection around this. And I'm going to go ahead and just hit delete. So I just kind of removed that. All right, and then I just clicked off. So now I have this bony skull on top of my face. So this point, I'm going to go ahead and play with some of my layer blending modes, right? Because I want to try and blend this skeleton onto my face. And then later, I'm going to take a mask and I'm going to mask off some of it because I don't need to do it like the Calavera skull. I don't want it over my whole head. I might just want pieces of it. But let's go ahead and click on our layer blending modes here. And let's see here. Darken. Ooh, darken looks pretty good. That's not bad. I'll go down and try out some others. Let me zoom in on it so you guys can see this a little better. Too much. Okay. And let me move this over. There we go. Ooh. All right. So let's look at some of these blending modes. All right. So darken looked pretty good. And it doesn't have to match exactly because we're going to be doing some other techniques to blend these things together. No. Ooh. Bad. No, I think I'm going to go back up here to darken. I kind of like to darken. What's this one? This is darker color. Darker color looks pretty good too. It's not too bad. Multiply. I think I'm going to stick with darken though. Okay, it'll be different for your picture because each of your portraits have different light qualities, and adjustment layer or blending layers are all about blending the pixels from one picture into the pixels on another. Okay, so I'm going to stick with dark. And now I don't want this skull over my whole face. I'm going to remove it from some. So with the skull layer highlighted, I'm going to go down to the box with the circle in it, which is a layer mask, and I'm going to add a layer mask to this. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start brushing away parts of the skull that I don't want to have included. Okay. So let's go back in here. And let's grab a black brush. So grabbing a brush with black on it. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with a big soft round brush just to remove parts of the skeleton that I don't want. And again, notice I'm clicking on the white mask layer. Okay, that's got to be highlighted. And when I use this tool, then I'm going to go ahead and start brushing away parts of this that I don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and brush it in here. So I'm going to brush it off of my eye here. I kind of like it on the cheekbone. I'm going to brush it off of my forehead. I think later I'm going to get rid of some of my hair. I'm going to leave the nose because I like the idea of that, like, you know, I'm a zombie. My nose fell off. So I'm going to remove this here. Okay, and then I'm going to leave my mouth. So I'm going to blend this out here. And I'm just going to leave some of these places I can leave a little bit of texture on. Maybe I'll leave that side of the jaw open. All right. And for the sake of, a demo, I'm probably not going to refine these details quite as much as I would expect you to maybe. Over here where I'm going to leave it, I think I'm going to change my brush into something with kind of a rougher edge. So I'm going to go to one of the Kyle's Ultimate Charcoal brushes. And now I'm going to kind of brush this off because I want it to, be a little bit more of a rough transition. There we go. So I'm just kind of brushing that off, and we'll just call this good for now. All right, so you can see I might switch back to white. I think I'm going to put a little bit more back into my teeth here, the side of the jaw. There we go. So let's add that back in. There we go. Cool. So control minus. All right, so now I've added, a little bit of more of a zombie profile to my face. So let's add a few more blemishes, okay? So I can do blemishes another way. I can use this rust here. You see how there's a really, distinctive texture here. Things that are peeling off. Like you could even take your own texture pictures from last week and use them. I'm just going to drag this up, hover over, bring it in, drop it off, say okay to the changes. This is a pretty high resolution picture, so I'm going to have to scale it down. So I'm going to go to the edit menu and I'm going to go to free transform and I'll scale this down. Might have to move it. Notice I couldn't even reach the transform handle, so I had to kind of move it out of the way before I could get there. And now we'll scale down. And we'll bring this back up here. And again, I'm going to drop the opacity on this a little bit so that I can see, which parts of this I want to use. Let's rotate it through here a little bit. This patch is kind of cool. This dark patch, I'm going to put this up on my forehead. And then I'll leave those bumps here. So I'm looking at this patch right here and kind of matching it with my forehead. And I'm going to hit the check mark here and just apply that. Again, let's bring the opacity back up. And let's look at some blending modes here. Okay, so let's see, what kind of blending modes can I use? Darken. Ooh, darken looks pretty good. Obviously, I'm going to go in with a mask and change this up later. So that's multiply, ooh, color burn, linear burn. Ooh, darker color looks pretty good too. I mean, you can see how this rust now is looking like I just have these massive gouges taken out of my skin. Okay. Overlay. I'm going to go back up. I'm just going to go with kind of like darker color. Yeah, I'll stick with darker color. Okay, so I'm going to stick with this one because I like the way that these are working out with each other. Okay, the way it's blending together with my skin. So on this layer now, I'm going to add the layer mask. And see, this is where the repetitiveness is coming in. Okay, this technique of adding a new element to a picture on a separate layer and then adding a layer mask to strategically remove what you don't want. So I'll go to my brush again, load my brush up with black. Okay, I'm going to go back to my brush and I'm going to start with a round brush and then I'm going to fine tune it with one that has more texture. So I'll start with this soft round here. I'll make it really big. And I'll go ahead and I'll just remove the parts where I don't want this. And notice the skeleton staying there, but the rust is going away. Okay, so there I can come back in, remove that all from there. I might need to go a little smaller here and go ahead and give my eye back. There we go. And move it away from my mouth. All right. So there, just kind of added some more, gore to my face. Let's switch. Using the letter X, I can switch to white really quickly, and I can put that back on. Maybe I need to get my textured brush again. Just kind of brush that back on there, just to densen, make it a little bit more dense. Okay. All right. So obviously, I could keep working on this. You can probably see where this is a step in the whole project where you could spend a lot of time trying to, polish this up to make it just right. I'm going to kind of skip ahead, okay, just so that you can see the finishing stages, and you can come back and continue to work on this this step of it, okay. But after I start doing this and I change my look and distort my features a little bit. I think I also want to go back in and get rid of half of my hair so that it's like it just kind of fell off, but I'll do that later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an adjustment layer over the top of all of this because I want to change all of these colors so that the colors of the skull and the rust and my skin, they all match. So we're going to click on a new adjustment layer called photo filter. Okay. So I'm going to click on photo filter, and photo filter is going to be put an overall like colored filter on it. All right. So it kind of blended not so bad there. I can choose some of these filters here. Warming filters are really not right for zombie world. A cooler filter might be better. There, it kind of makes things a little bit cool, mysterious. I could go and just make it all sepia toned. All right, that might look cool. Or I can also do color. So I can click on color, and I can go ahead and pick a color, like something in the kind of that grotesque dark green family. And click OK on that. And now I'm going to increase the density of that photo filter. And you see how everything's going to start taking on this kind of greenish tint. And obviously, if I spent a little bit more time on my blemishes, they would be blended in a little bit better. But you see this photo filter takes everything and it kind of blends it all with a nice kind of a greenish tint. Okay. If I wanted less of this on the background, you see I could brush it off. So I could take this photo filter right here and I could go ahead and grab a black brush. Go ahead and open the garage. Yeah. It's going to get loud here for a second. So I get a brush, load it with black. And you see here, I can kind of brush some of this off of the background if I wanted to. So that the filter, was just restricted to my face, or I could even make it really big and just add some kind of texture here, just around my face. So remember, the filters themselves can also be masked off. Okay, I'm gonna go back. All right. So next, after I've added this photo filter and all of my blemishes, some of the finishing touches on this are gonna happen after I compress all the layers. Okay, so I don't expect you to be here yet because I would want you to put more work into this. But if I click on the top layer and I go ahead and I click with a shift on the bottom layer, I can select all of these layers. At this point, I'm going to right click on these layers and I'm going to choose flatten image. Okay, flatten image is going to get rid of all my layers and compress it all down into one layer. And now after this has been flattened, I can go in and do some more work with like the dodging and burning tool. So maybe here I could use the burn tool. And let's say I want to burn away some of the midtones, exposure 45%. I could just take parts of this and I could like darken them, especially in here in these like bad gap areas, right? I can go ahead and see I'm using this filter, this dodge tool, just to kind of darken portions of this. maybe here just around my mouth. Okay, so I'm just kind of going in. Remember the dodge tool or the burn tool, we just kind of give everything kind of a darker tone. We take those pixels and we turn them down. Okay, so there, I'm kind of darkening some of these pieces up. If I wanted to accentuate some pieces, I could use the dodge tool, which makes them brighter. Burn is darker, dodge is brighter. And I could go in here and say I want to take the shadows and I want to lighten them up a little bit on some of this. Okay, just to add a little bit more contrast. So adding some dodges and some burns to this will also help out. Finally, if I went ahead and I opened that texture, the film texture I opened up here, I could take this guy with the arrow, move it onto the portrait, drop it off, and it doesn't fit. I mean, it fits actually. That works out pretty good, but you don't see anything here. Now I'm going to go ahead though, and I'm just going to change the blending modes. Okay, watch me cycle through these. So this is the dissolve mode. Ooh, that's the darken mode. Okay, that's kind of creepy looking. Here is multiply. Ooh, I like the multiply. Okay, keep going. That's pretty aggressive. Color burn. All right, this looks like an old daguerreotype, darker color. Ooh. So you see here, all these things are kind of blending in different ways. Ooh, that's kind of cool. So I just end up picking the one that I feel like looks the best. And then I could even, like, if this is one that I like, I can play with the opacity on that layer too. So I could go ahead and dial it down. So there, it's just like an old photo that somebody came across of a zombie from the Civil War. All right. So anyway, those are the techniques. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and just be here to help you guys out.